meeting start recording? It's recording now. Okay.
All right, there we go.
So now we'll get started. And we've got Tom. I'm just peering at this. And latent semantics. And yeah. So Tom, by all means, hop in here. You're one of our regulars. And I just want to talk about the blab. Look, you know, Sandy and I feel that this topic of leadership has many dimensions. We have different views about some aspects of it and how best to handle it. But that's good. It makes for a nice dynamic. And one of the topics that we talked about this on a previous occasion, Sandy and I, and that one of the topics I used to find came up a lot when I was doing training needs analysis with companies. When I try to explore what the key training needs were, when I talked with the people themselves rather than with some HR manager, one of the biggest issues came up was dealing with difficult people, whether that was customers or whether it was other colleagues in the same company. So that's something that every leader has to deal with. What does a leader do, for instance, when person A comes along and says, "Oh, person B doesn't like me and they're shutting me out," and the leader says, "Well, have you talked to person B?" "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly talk to him, because he's too difficult." So the leader has to somehow find a way not to kind of just jump in and try and solve it, but to work through that. So those are some of the issues we could talk about. There's also the whole thing of, is the customer always right? Or there are difficult customers, and how do you deal with people who are being difficult as customers? And how do you help people learn? When people who are reporting to you, how do you help them learn how not to just shut down or engage in trench warfare or something when other people when they're having some sort of clash, with other people? And sometimes there's a personality conflict, as if that solves the question. Sometimes it might not be a personality conflict; it might be something that was said and was understood in one way by the person, saying it in another, more offended way by the other person, by the person being spoken to. So those are some of the issues
we lost.
Tom's having a bit of trouble getting in.
We lost your video, Tom, and your audio. Your audio is a challenge also.
This is crazy. Can you hear me, Sandy?
I can hear you. It's but I can hear you.
Okay. No, Tom, you don't have to come in if you don't want to. Tom, I just say.
No, according to what I see here, I'm in.
I'm coming in.
And you guys, in, Tom. I'm Tom.
And you guys are both audio only now.
Oh, really? Okay.
You can see Tom. I can't see Tom. And
let me go come in again.
And I don't have a name for latent semantics, but if you would like to try and come in, then you're very welcome. Just click on the see open seat. We'll let you in. Tell us your name. Tom. Oh boy.
I am here.
I just it may be a connection problem on my part, but why? If that's the case, why is Sandy having problems?
Can you see me now?
Maybe it's a lab problem. Maybe they're overloaded.
Des, try and go out back in again. It might just be a matter of doing that.
Is this for Gianna?
This reminds me of the old AOL dial-up.
Okay. Sandy, you want to talk about leadership and dealing with difficult people? And what fun that is.
Sandy, did you hear him?
Hear me.
I got a little bit of that. I'm sorry. I apologize.
He suggested that you chat about dealing with difficult people along the
Can
terms
you
of
hear me
what
now?
he was. I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I think that part of the challenge with dealing with difficult people is there's so many different. Yes. We are technically challenged. From my standpoint, part of the challenge with dealing with difficult people
Sure.
is there's 3 different types. Jess, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can.
There's so many different types of difficult people that it's almost impossible to just say this is what you need to do. Some people are if you do them. Some are better if you don't feed into what they're putting out there. There's no one size fits all with dealing with the people. So it really is a situation basis. You know, some of the standards that you could talk are, to try and address it privately as quick as possible. Put yourself in that person's shoes. See the perspective that they're coming from. Most difficult people are like the rest of us. There's something going on in their life that's happening. Most difficult people aren't necessarily bad people. They're just dealing with something, and how they're channeling it isn't in the best way. Tom, you're squirming. I feel like you got something you want to say there. Uh-oh, now we've lost your audio.
All I get is a little circle left. Yeah.
No
Sandy,
audio.
in the entertainment world, you would have done. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. I know, this is tough. I feel like we
So
Okay, I just refreshed. Can you hear me now?
We keep
can
going.
hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
And I can see and hear both of you as well.
Okay, good.
No, I wasn't really squirming about that. I was just amused by the technical issues.
I can hear you.
Okay.
And I was agreeing with what you're saying, because difficult people come in all shapes, sizes, and flavors. I mean, it's very, very rare that you run into the truly evil person, the Hitler person. And yet, sometimes when you find a difficult person, you immediately want to push them in that direction. You say, well, they're just like that. And you're right, Sandy, that's not really the case. I mean, I have found people having problems, and if you look simply at their Myers-Briggs types, it's just that they process information differently, and they deal with the world around them differently, and they fail to communicate. And that failure to communicate makes them each look at the other person as an evil person, when in fact they're just different. And then, of course, you can get into the value system. I have a couple of friends from college I'm still in touch with, and one of them in particular knows that every degree of increase in temperature anywhere on the earth is due to man-made causes, and he won't even listen to reason. He won't discuss the issue. He's a difficult person because he's so dogmatic about a topic that, as far as I can tell, I'm not a scientist, so as far as I can tell, scientists are still debating. So you're right, Sandy, there's this whole spectrum of difficult people, and the solution to dealing with them is not a cookbook, one size fits all. So I was very intrigued about the topic tonight because I'm very interested in your thoughts on it.
I think that is part of what it is
If you look at
You're fading in and out.
Yes, I think you probably need to go out and come back in. I apologize to everybody here. We're just having some technical issues. You probably need to go out and come back in.
Can you hear me now?
We're not getting you all. It's Tom and Sandy. We get over. We've become difficult people by taking. I think it is. You've got people who are true rabble rousers and just want to get out there in the pot. You've got people who, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who are difficult because they're not pitching in. They're not doing their. You've got the gossips who are behind people's back. You've got the true narcissists who they're above it all. So that whole spectrum and how you want to deal with it really comes down to, is it a personality issue? Is it a behavior? There we go, Tom. Is it a behavior based on the situation? Is it a behavior done that is dealing with totally unrelated to what you're seeing? And it's very, Des mentioned it earlier in the discussion, that leaders tend to have the initial, we'll go talk it out, talk to the person. But before you can really talk to a person that you're challenged with, to assess in yourself if you're reading something to it, not be there because of where you're coming from, or could it be something else? Could it be something you're just not seeing that's going on in their life and their job? And then you can really go in and try a conversation with somebody. You got to take off a bit of your own armor that you're really going in there for a fight, because you don't make any progress if you do that. Sharon saying she loves the topic. If you want to share, let us please, and we've got sitting there. So if you'd like to come in, we'd love to hear. What about you? What's your experience been?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think Tom can.
So
I can hear you just fine. I'm sorry. I type loudly, so I mute myself when I was typing. I shot a note off to Blab Help just to see if they're if they're aware of a connection problem, because it's unusual that we would all be having it because we're all over the place.
Yeah, it is. James just came in. John is a task HR pro that I was in a Blab afternoon on. There's some of your comments too, John, with difficult people. So totally up to you to come on or not. John, fantastic, and comes from as Des would appreciate, it comes from a different perspective than I do on certain things, but has some really great insights. I appreciate your coming in, John. Des always laughs because we come from different.
It's good.
So, Sandy,
one
I apologize.
of the areas in which you get somebody who can get classified.
Yes, we've got nothing.
Yeah, you keep disappearing.
You can't hear me? Okay, well, I'll just listen. You talk.
Sandy,
you guys talk. I'm going to drop out, so invite some more people in.
When I was on mute, I think you asked me a question, Sandy, and I apologize. I may have missed that. What was the question you were asking?
What your experience has been with it? I know you've been and John is saying he can barely hear audio either. We are really struggling tonight. I apologize.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a response back from Blab yet either. But in any case, the experience that I've had is what I was sharing earlier about. You run across these people that have a spectrum of issues, and the solution is not necessarily here's the magic formula, here's the magic wand you wave, everything is fine. And it is important that you develop the proper relationship with the people you lead to understand. And Sandy, as you've pointed out, and you're going out and coming back in, I see. As you pointed out, there you are. I see you just fine now.
John was telling me, so I figured I'd come back in.
And so the point is, by developing a relationship, having an open communication, even such things as Myers-Briggs that people aren't conscious is affecting those around them, is often the idea behind it. Like any good leader, I think they need to get more facts. In my view, a leader is a fact-based decision maker. Now, that doesn't mean you need all the facts, because you'll never have all the facts, but you strive to get as many facts as you can. And if somebody's going through a bad time in their life, if they have an elder parent who's got an issue, a child who's got an issue, if a spouse has an issue, or they have spousal problems, or if they're just having a bad day, or you take your pick. Life is full of problems. And we are 24-hour people. It's what I refer to as the 824 syndrome. You come to work for 8 hours a day, but you bring 24 hours of baggage with you. And whatever else is going on, you're dealing with it. And as a result, those around you are dealing with it. And so by having that open communication and understanding people and basically cutting them some slack sometimes, I think you can work more closely to solve the problem. Now, as you noted, Sandy, the other issue is the one who simply isn't carrying their weight. They're just lazy. They just have no work ethic, whatever that issue might be. And I think that's a different kind of difficult person, and it needs a different solution.
Right. I think that's one of the challenges is because a lot of the people who are having challenges with difficult people in the workplace find it really challenging to go to the person hour and say that they're having that problem, but yet they don't have whether it's the institutional power or they have the wherewithal to understand yet how to manage the difficult people. It's a creative jam there. And when you do have somebody who goes to a leader, you can often have the same challenge. If John comes to me, if I'm his and says, that is just the lazy person in this office. We can't get her to do anything. I have to start sitting there and thinking, is John really lazy, or does Pat have a problem? You've got to start to look. You can't take it. You can't ignore it, but you can't necessarily take it straight face value because you don't know the dynamic that's going on between those two employees. So you just jump and say, oh, that person is lazy, and start going down the mental list. Des is saying a lot of leaders see them as can-do people and like to get fixed expeditiously. God, I wish you wouldn't use such big words. So can't spend time fixing your problem rather than looking at whether there's a process problem in the workplace or there's personal problems intrinsically, and need a leader to look deeper than the immediate dispute or just absolutely agree. I think that's one so important. John is in here, and what our conversation was this afternoon is we were talking about culture and how you institutionalize, achieve your goals and living values. And I think in the workplace, when you're dealing with difficult, one of the things that you have to institutionalize as a leader is getting to your people more than just position or more than just the task they're doing. You are to Des's point, you do have to start at what might be going on, what might be going on in their life that's affecting this, and to do those types of things, you've got to be able to make changes in person. John's coming. Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Hello, John.
Hey, Tom. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How's your connection?
My connection is good. I can't see Sandy. I can hear her audio barely.
Right. She cuts in and out a little bit. It was a little tinny, but I'm following pretty well. Des just kept disappearing on us. It was terrible.
Right.
That's good.
Shouldn't have bothered to put makeup on.
You look just fine.
I could have gotten the ratchet word. I'll try and join again. But John, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You've got a lot of experience with this, I'm sure.
Look, what you were both saying resonated with me so clearly, and I was taking notes here as you both were talking. And in dealing with difficult people, because I've had a lot of experience, especially within the last 2 to 3 years, there are 3 things that I think you need in order to deal with difficult people, both up and down the chain and sideways. I think you need a healthy dose of problem solving, which relates to the fact getting that Tom said earlier. You need to be able to have courageous conversations, which is in reference to what Sandy was saying. And you need great emotional intelligence. You need to be able to see what's not there and be able to address it in the appropriate way. Sometimes give it time and space, but sometimes attack it directly. And you have to understand the right approach to address the difficult people. And then there's the box, there's the boundaries that you need to have, whether it's in your workplace or your family's lines that people just cannot step across. And there has to be repercussions for stepping across those boundaries and violating the relationship that you have. So you can't do nothing because you will end up being a victim. You have to do something, and you have to do the right thing.
That's an interesting point about you have to do something. A lot of my work is surrounding government people. And the rule with the government is if you see something wrong, you have to report it. And if you don't report it, you're as guilty as the person who's doing it. And so you're right. You can't just ignore it. But I was intrigued what you said about being a problem solver. I don't know if this is going to show up well. This is my business card.
Yeah.
And let me hold it still.
Yep.
And you see the title I picked for myself?
Chief Problem Solver.
Because, my view is if you don't have a problem, you don't need a consultant. And if you have a government contract, which is where I work primarily, you got a problem. You may not know it yet, but you got a problem coming.
Absolutely.
But when you're dealing with people, and I crack this joke often, and maybe some people don't appreciate it. When I was in management, I used to say that this management gig wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the employees. Now I get to say the consulting gig wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the clients. But the point is, people are people, and people are going to interact, and sometimes those interactions are going to go astray.
Absolutely.
And to your point, John, the whole idea of having that relationship and exploring, without going over the boundaries, but exploring where these issues might lie. And I think that this is something that comes somewhat from education, but in my view, it's more of experience. And you cross enough people's paths, you deal with enough different issues, you develop a toolbox that helps you deal with these things.
Yeah. And the experience, you have to be careful about that, because sometimes you can get lazy and not do the homework that you need to do in order to solve the problem properly. So you bring your experience, but you also bring a baby's eye to the situation and make sure that you're looking at the situation for what it is, and you're not carrying your baggage along with the solution of the problem.
Yeah, the psychological problem of projection, where you've got an issue, but you project that out on other people and say, well, it's all their fault. And no, you got to look internally for some of these.
Yeah.
Sandy, you're being quiet. Is that because you're being quiet, or because we've lost your audience?
I was enjoying what you guys were saying. I know, it's like you shut my head, but I was enjoying what you're saying. John, okay.
We don't have a picture of you. We just have your voice. That's why we can't see your body language reaction.
All right, I'm going to ask this question, and then I'll try and go out and come in again. It seems to be a problem with the host here that Des and I are both hosts. We seem to be the only ones that are having a problem. If I can on a hot seat, either guys?
Here comes Des back.
There we go.
Now, Blair made an interesting point about how we so cavalierly toss around these psychological nomenclature about people being OCD or narcissistic. On the other hand, I think that there is enough of the, let's call it collective wisdom, if you will, that people get it. They understand it. Certainly, I know I've read enough Harvard Business Review articles on the narcissistic leader, or whatever. I mean, this is a popular subject, and if you read enough on it, I don't know that you need to be a psychologist to understand the tendencies of some people towards certain personality characteristics.
I don't know if you can see Blair's comment. I think it's a great point. I feel there's a problem.
And that's what I was. Go ahead.
I feel that Blair is saying, I feel there's a problem these days with everyone being a psychologist. We label people narcissist, OCD, put them in a box without understanding the deeper dynamics at play.
Right, and that's what I was responding to.
Okay.
I think she's right, but at the same time, I think that there's enough literature out there that we can at least categorize to some degree, and by that categorization, I believe it helps us deal with the issue better. Because as we said, there's such a spectrum. If you're shooting in the wrong direction, you're going to miss the target.
But if there's a lot of literature out there, but I think percent of people who are actually reading it and understanding it is probably very small. Especially when you're in a workplace situation, maybe people are grabbing a term here or there in their latest issue of Cosmo or something, but people aren't the people in the workplace, especially if you're not in a leadership role, are most likely not reading books to be legitimately informed. of the best way to handle these and certainly have to be able to label people.
Right. And most of the time you read an article and you go try to apply this stuff really quickly and you don't know really how to apply what you've just read. Mm-hmm. And that to me is what Blair is speaking about, the emergence of all the pop psychologists. And, you can't solve problems only that way or by labeling people, because you label people and you try to apply the wrong solution based on the label that you have generated for them, based on an article or a book that you have read that says we are this.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. That's absolutely true.
On the other hand,
I can't hear you.
It's legitimate to use.
I'm not catching any of that.
Des, we hear you.
Sorry, Des. He has such value to bring to the table, and we're losing out.
The Gold Coast internet must not be playing with me today.
Yeah. By the way, since we have a break here, if I may, how do you all like the black background on the comment field?
I'm okay with it. I sort of like it. I like the black with the color. Do you not like it?
Did you know you can change it?
No.
I mean,
if you put in the backslash, light, L-I-G-H-T, it'll turn it white. And one of the things I dislike about the black is, because I'm such a horrible typist, is that I can't catch my misspellings. With the white background, the red underline shows up better.
I think because my eyes are great, this actually, the white against the black stands out better for me, so I'm cool with it.
That's cool. But, just want people to know, I learned that little trick the other day, and I thought I'd share it. But back to the point, Sandy, I'm sorry, you were saying to... well,
I'm going to read the comment because trying diligently to get in, and he said it's limited to terms like narcissists to identify behaviors as distinct from labeling people. I agree with that if you're qualified to label it. I mean, I think in the workplace when we're with difficult people and someone sits back and says, "Oh my God, they're such a narcissist," they're doing it from a pop culture reference most of the time than from a truly informed position of what a narcissist is, I think.
Right. I think there's a difference, like you said. Sandy, you there?
Yeah, I was welcoming in.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I had a little fade out. Thanks, Tom. Tom's helping me.
When we can't see you, we don't know that you're off to the side typing or something. So.
Let me try and go out and come back in. I can self on screen, so I'm forgetting that you can't see me.
So, John, it looks like we've totally blabjacked this blab session here. The two hosts have...
Am I here now?
We see you fine now. I do, anyway.
Okay. I don't know what's doing it. Okay, Des is saying, what do you think about the leader in the middle? You have a team you're leading. You're reporting to someone who behaves unreasonably. You said consistently. I'm guessing maybe inconsistently by most people's assessment.
Or is consistently unreasonable, is how I'm reading that.
Okay.
Been there several times.
Right. Not a great boss.
No. So what I have done in the past is, I've said this, you're in the war zone to my team. And that to me is letting them know these are the conditions that we're dealing with. I'm going to cover you the best I can, but understand the scenario and the environment in which we are playing. And you have to protect yourself. And to the ogre or the challenging manager, I think to the best of your ability, you have to have courageous conversations and also pick your battles with that you're willing to go to the hill for. And you got to have a tough skin as well. And if this is not the environment in which you are getting what you need in order to grow and develop other people, then you got to consider getting out of the way of that difficult person and possibly leaving the environment. Don't stand there and be a victim or a punching bag for an inordinate amount of time.
Can I ask you?
It's an interesting.
Go ahead,
Go
John.
ahead.
I was just
go
going to
ahead.
ask John if he go a little bit deeper. Because in a situation like that, where you say have a courageous conversation, what would that look like with someone who's having to go into their boss and have a courageous conversation? How to approach that? So, you know, how do you go in and how do you do that so you're being respectful but not being and getting your point across?
Yeah, you definitely, the important thing is it's much like a GPS. You have to set the destination of that type of conversation and what you hope to achieve. And if you're going in and saying, look, I think I've been disrespected, I think you need to go in and say that. And here's how, give the cases where you have been disrespected or where your team has been disrespected. And the thing is, when you're communicating, you can't necessarily be attached to the outcome. What you're doing is trying to resolve the situation to the best that you can and gain some respectability back and reestablish the boundaries. And if you can't do that, again, you got to think about your place in that environment. But you got to have a conversation and you got to be willing to deal with the repercussions. And it is the how in that conversation that you need to think about. You got the what, you got to have that conversation. You got to think about how you have that conversation and the tone of that conversation, but you have to have a conversation. You have to do something.
I'm going to ask you, because this it's not me now, but a prior Sandy certainly was facing this. Jennifer Lawrence has talked a lot this week about how women have trouble sometimes going in and having conversations, even in terms of ask for what they're worth salary standpoint. And I know it was a 30-year-old woman in a very male-dominated industry. It was hard for me to go in and have any conversation. I remember in one time, and I got promoted to a very high level, and I asked the question. I had been promoted very publicly at a Christmas party, and I went into my boss and I was like, "Thank you," and then I thought I was stealing myself up for one of those courageous conversations, and I said, "So, what will be my salary to go with that? Lot more responsibility," and it was a shutdown. That there was going to be no salary increase, and I think that Jennifer Lawrence is bringing up a great point in terms of you look at her, and I think she's a very, very strong woman from the outside looking, and yet she didn't want to. She be labeled a troubler, be labeled somebody who wasn't playing. And I think women struggle with that, especially in male-dominant industries. How do you have that courageous conversation when there's a predisposition that you're going to label if you can do that?
You have it anyway. And if you are a leader, if you've agreed to be a leader, you have submitted and you are obedient to what you are here to achieve, whether that's purpose or that's strategy or that's mission. You submit and you become obedient to the purpose. And so that is what draws you to the conversation, and it draws you through the conversation. And the labels are just the scratches and the broken bones that you get, but they don't stop you from getting to the mission or agreeing to make the journey of that mission. So that's why it's so important to keep your main purpose and your main focus in mind, because when the battle starts, that's what you are trying to achieve. Right. You know, you're trying to think about what's your center, how to get back home, or how to get to that destination of purpose and mission and strategy. That's what you keep ahead of you.
Blair, thank you for joining us. You said you had an answer for me. I 20 years ago, I would have been sitting there going, "Where's Blair? I need an answer to this."
Welcome, Blair.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel a little bit like a blab addict today. I had one earlier where I saw John. I tried to get on Fred's, and now I'm here.
Well, welcome.
It's like,
give me the fix. Give me the fix.
But I do have an answer, especially for women who are afraid that they're going to be shut down in a number of ways by male or female bosses. I like to prescribe the reaction. So I have them go in and they say, this conversation's probably going to make you really pissed. If that's what they have a history of doing. Yeah. You could say, I have a feeling I might be shut down for saying this, but it needs to be said. When you prescribe what it is you're most afraid of, it does a number of things. One, it alerts the person that you're on to their defenses. Mm-hmm. Number two is it gives you a sense of control. That you're not just splaying yourself out to be attacked. You're actually going into battle saying, this is probably going to happen, and I need to speak up anyway. So both of those things tend to bring a nice equilibrium to the situation. And it also helps boost your courage because, again, if you're going into a conversation very afraid that you're going to be shut down, you may unconsciously be shutting yourself down preemptively. So being able to put it out there and saying, this is the kind of conversation that could make you shut me down is very useful, I find. Does that help?
I think so. Let me just challenge the thought for a second. Can that work negatively in the aspect that you've already assumed what type of reaction you're going to get?
Yeah, I wouldn't make that assumption if it hasn't happened before one or two times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, this was, I mean, for me, and yes, over the years, I definitely learned to deal with it. It was a situation where it was a difficult boss. For me, it was a difficult relationship at the time.
Can I ask you a little bit about it? What was the difficulty? Was it contempt? Was it derision?
In the beginning, it was because it ended up being those things. It was one that just never resolved itself. I think in the beginning, it really was a situation of coming from being two very, very different people and having different measures of success and different measures of performance and different ways of communicating, especially. And, you know, it was a very
I mean, is it okay to ask you to be more specific? Because you could be, you know, kumbaya, and they could be more command and control, but it still doesn't give us a sense of the difficulty that you were coming up against.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it definitely resolved itself, but I outlasted him. No, I'm kidding.
I get that.
I think it was different situations. It wasn't a one-off situation. It could be something as simple as I was very, I was the Latin as an elective. I was always very high performance, and so I pride myself on that. And yet when I with this boss, it was the first time where he would say, go and do this. And I would come in and it would be like, this isn't even close to what I want. And I was working with a partner at a time, and I'd be like, and the two of us would both, we would be in sync as to what we heard. The boss it was to him, we weren't even close, Mark. Mm-hmm, 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 so that's one situation of that could have happened. Mm-hmm. Look,
I did do this with, I don't know your exact situation. I know the first time that I was overtly preemptive, I had a supervisor who was very contemptuous. I was trying to learn, and it was a similar thing. I would get directives, and I would come in, and you're nowhere near the mark. Oh, you went so off with that client. Oh, that really, and, it started to make me not want to tell him what I was doing. But I had to, because I had to learn. So I would go in and I would go, you're probably not going to like what I did. You're probably going to think, and immediately he'd be like, well, why would you say that? And it changed the whole thing. It doesn't work with everyone, obviously, but what?
I think I fall more John category with, I tend to steer people away from saying you're not going to like this, partly because I had someone who constantly came in and would say you're not going to like this, and my response was, well, tell me. Find a way to say it that we're not starting on opposite ends of the spectrum to begin with.
No, that's not an effective. I mean, if it's chronic, then it's not effective. It's not bringing the desired impact, right? If someone just keeps coming in and saying it, that's just seems to be defensive behavior having nothing to do with your connection, right?
And this is like some of the people. Go ahead.
In hindsight, no, I know. I think I'm a very, very direct person, and I just am. I just say something without without softening the blow. And it was probably an industry, and he was probably someone in the industry who wasn't used to that, especially from women. Most people were much more. It was the advertising industry. You know anything about the advertising industry?
Sure, I do, actually.
You watch what you say, and I tend to not. But again, that's hindsight. I mean, this happened when I was 30 years old. So it was,
so it sounds to me like your problem was feeling that discomfort that he just didn't like you, which is a good thing. A good thing to grow your tough skin. What you're saying is that you were able to still be direct, still be yourself. He didn't like you for some reason. He didn't, show you that affirmation. He didn't give you that feedback. And that's hard. That's hard to be in that difference, but it really does grow your skin. And as you said, you stayed there longer than he did. So you grew your chops with that guy. And this is what
I was going to say. I think that it's also very much about it. It really is, in hindsight, I can see it as a good case study of understanding as a leader, really understand the person as a whole. I was at that time also in that sandwich generation of I had little and I had a mom who was dying. So to have that extra at work was too much. So even though direct, I was probably direct, and because of the outside pressure in my life, I was aggressively direct. So I can see where I was somebody who was not an innocent in this situation either. And I would hope that if I were leading somebody, that I knew well enough that I knew that there were other dynamics going. And I think that's us back where we started in some of the conversation is when you've got this going on, it's important to know look at the personal person, not just that particular behavior.
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, you and Tom were saying earlier about, being able to have the emotional intelligence to see beyond the current situation, to, look into the 24 hours of baggage that they might be bringing to that moment.
Right. In addition to that, goes to your blab earlier when we talked about being introspective, and you gotta be that along with the emotional intelligence that you see outwardly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Blair, I was going to comment about one of the things you said. One of the things that just seems to set me off, and I've had to learn to control it, is when somebody comes to you and says, "Now, don't get mad," but I'm like, all right, I'm already mad.
I hate that because it's so controlling. But if somebody says to you, this is probably going to piss you off, but we need to have this conversation anyway, that's very different. That's very different.
I think so. I don't think I've ever had anyone say that exactly to me, so I'm not sure how I would react in the heat of the battle. But it's a good point. Well, and I think that kind of introduction to a difficult conversation is important.
Yeah.
I made the comment earlier on the side.
You can tell this with spouses, right? Because you know what sets your spouse off. And you know that there are certain conversations that need to be had, whether or not your spouse wants to have them.
That's right.
So those are the times in which I think that those kinds of conversations, look, this is going to piss you off, but look, we need to talk about this. We're in a situation here. I've worked with recently a couple of partners, 2 men partners, who have a contentious relationship in creating the next phase of their business. And, you know, they're sort of giving that signal. And in this case, again, they know each other's behavior. This isn't going into a boss and being defensive, like, you're not going to like what I have to say, or you're not going to like my job. But it's really saying, look, this one's going to piss you off, but we need to get through this. We need to get to these details. Has been very effective for the more reactive partner. It kind of gives the signal to the reactivity that it needs to kind of go take a back seat. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well, it does. And I guess the more common scenario that I run into with difficult conversations are in negotiations, which are by their nature a difficult conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
And understanding the dynamics of the people, what they're really trying to accomplish. And this is why I like Fisher and Urey's book, Getting to Yes, so much,
like that
because it gets away from all of that personality stuff and says, what are you really interested in accomplishing? And I think a lot of that can transfer directly to dealing with any difficult person, because you are negotiating with them. You are saying, look, what you are doing now is not acceptable. However, if we channel it here, we fix this, we change that, we take this pressure out, whatever it might be, then your behavior could become acceptable.
Yeah.
And so negotiations is kind of my mindset on these things.
But it does take a cool head in order for them to move effectively, right? You know, both people have to be in a relatively emotionally temperate zone. They can't.
Well, not just being in a temperate zone like that. I think that in order for a leader to have those kind of conversations, they have to have enough internal emotional security to be able to say, okay, I'm willing to lay this out on the line here. I'm willing to bare my soul. I'm willing to be vulnerable. And so many people that I've seen who are in leadership positions, note I didn't say who were leaders, people who are in leadership positions, they can't do that. And it's sad. It hurts them.
Yeah.
I don't think
but
we
they can
realize.
Be trained.
Yeah, I think that's the case. They can be trained, but I don't think we realize, to the emotional intelligence point and the introspection point, I don't think we realize how many people come to the workplace hurt, and how many hurt people hurt people. Yep. And we constantly thrust us into leadership positions without checking that emotional balance and how they react in the heat of battle. And those things are crucial. Just because someone is a super high performer doesn't mean that they're necessarily ready for the biggest stage. And like I've said on other blabs, I like total package people, and I try to develop total package people. So I want someone with that balance. I want someone with that charge, but I also need them to have great situational awareness and know what they need to bring to the situation, and also be able to bring it.
And I think it is hard because life happens, and you might be that person this year, and next year the roof fell in, and you might have reached your limit. So it's being able to constantly work. That's when we talk how important it is for leaders to have someone that they can talk to and trust, and be able to say that. I mean, I've worked with CEOs who have the same securities that the rest of us have. They've just figured out how to channel that, and how to put it in boxes so that it's not going to bleed into one situation, won't bleed into the other situation.
Right.
But it takes time to learn to do that, and it does take having somebody that you can talk to and trust.
Truth.
I love what Des just said, bringing it really back to difficult people, not just in leadership, but in, on the teams. When all the team sort of has singled out that one difficult person, how do you manage that? I don't want to take over the blab, but I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Sarah, we've already kicked Des out, so it's a revolution already.
I'm sure Fred does too. Leadership as a professional. Well, but we're talking about people who are just on that team, that one person. It's Blabjack Day.
Yeah, we blabjacked his blab.
We did.
But there are a couple of things I think that as a leader you can, or that we can teach leaders how to be on call for that one person that gets singled out on a team. The first thing is, are they doing their job? If they're not doing their job and everyone's finding them difficult because they're not doing their job, well, that might be a real, actual
we've got a performance
issue. That's a performance issue. Exactly. Other people are carrying their weight. If it's not corrected with the interventions that you make. Mm-hmm. What did somebody say the other day, John? Like, release them to the employee environment? I don't know. You said that. You put it so well.
It's time for you to release them to their next opportunity.
Oh, God, right? That is so
Somebody else
correct.
is waiting for them.
Exactly. But there are times when people are doing their job and they just have odd personalities or personalities that don't match the rest of the team. And I've seen great transformation on teams when people begin to use humor in those situations, when people begin to see intentions that are there that aren't obvious. One example I have is somebody who was in a COO role in a startup because it was really the best position for them at the time, but they were much more of a marketing person. But they didn't, when the new person came in to be the COO, he was constantly checking in on her. And she was like, you're stepping on my toes. Like, this is my job now. When she was able to see that this was his way of making sure that she was set up, that he cared about the company so much, that he wanted to be sure that she had everything that she needed, it really shifted her annoyance. And that was a major, he had a kind of a style that wasn't as graceful as hers, but it was really profound. And I think that when there are those people, those odd people that sort of pull you down, but they're doing their job well, it's really important to look for ways they're expressing themselves that might not be as obvious to you because you communicate differently.
Yeah.
Des said he was going to try to get back in. So I'm going to go ahead and cross myself out here. And see if Des can get back in or someone else can come in to join the discussion. But thank you all so very, very much. It's always a pleasure to interact with all of you. And Des, good luck with that connection, because I know it's so frustrating when technology doesn't work. And us, not speaking for you, but me, as a dinosaur, computers hate me. I'm just convinced of that. So.
But you're so cute. How could that be?
No labels, Tom. No labels.
Sandy was talking about her about needing makeup. She didn't have to put any makeup on since nobody could see her, and I'm thinking, yeah, I got this load over my head where I kind of need my blunting makeup myself. So, in any case, it's been a pleasure. I'll stick around and participate in the chats, but good to talk with you. And
Thanks.
Nice meeting you, Tom.
Good to see you.
See you, man.
All right, let's see if it comes back in. Can Lizard come back in?
Here he comes.
I know, we're all sitting here with like breath to see if he can make it through.
No.
Boom.
There you go.
There he is.
Welcome.
No.
You're there, Des.
No. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear
Yes.
me? No.
Nope.
You can. John can. Blair.
Choppy.
No.
Oh, man.
Well, would anyone like to take a seat and continue our blabjack of Des's blab?
So this wasn't originally your blab, Sandy?
No, well, I'm Des's co-host. I sort of bored. I'm the Vanna White. He's the Pat Jack of this crowd.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to read my best to read the side. I'm trying to keep it rolling a little bit, but
Right.
I'm not quite as adept at doing both of them. Des is on the Gold Coast in Australia, so sometimes he's got a connection problem. Oh, Tom's saying he'll take me. Oh, there we go. I'm Vanna White tonight. All right, Blair, You said you had a lot. Let's hear it.
Okay. No, I took over with that comment that Des made about what to do when there's someone on the team that really sticks out. And, just to reiterate, my point was if they're not doing their job, it may be time to go, to release them to the wild of their next opportunity. But if they are doing their job, there may be a way that they communicate that can be a part of culture that they can laugh at, or that there's something that they're expressing in a different way that other people find annoying. But if you find the intention, it can help. So that was the recap of that moment. Yeah, but I love this topic because this is really my work. This is when people call me in, is like when they're just not being able to get along relationally, and the work is slowed down and the productivity is slowed down. So.
And I want to stand on your shoulders and mention something in that, the landscape has changed in terms of teams and workplaces, in that, 15 or 20 years ago, you could be a great performer and be an ass and stay on the team. Yep. But nowadays, just the entry into the workplace, into the team is your performance. And nowadays people really want to understand, can I work with you?
Yeah.
Can I work with you? And that is the key to, one, staying on the team and then getting promoted and getting additional opportunities and exposure. You have to be able to be workable and be affable, amenable, and, be able to be a good teammate. And people have to want to work with you.
So true. I sometimes, I was going to say the word worry, but I probably shouldn't make it quite such a personal word, but there's so much stress on being up and being positive, and sometimes we're just not having that day. And so how do you? We're talking about it from a leadership standpoint, but I've worked with lots of younger people where you haven't gotten to the point yet where you're still developing this ability. How do we as leaders train or develop our younger people to really have this type of awareness and this type of empathy or understanding that it's part of the bigger picture? Well, I'm going to go way back to one of the first comments you said tonight, John. Well, I also understand how you maintain that boundary of where you don't stick your nose in there.
There's an acronym that I live and die by. It's, always keep your pie baking, and it's your performance, your image, your experience, and your exposure. And I think a way that you grow and develop our younger generations or our different generations is giving them experience and exposure. You have to give them real-time access to leadership. You have to have them in the important meetings. You have to give them the important projects so that they can understand the varying dynamics that play into the success of strategy and the success of projects. And you have to teach them, in addition to them observing, you have to make those connections for them, and you have to allow them to make the connections and allow them to make mistakes and create teachable moments. All those things work together to help them also get deep as they get broad.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
Yep, very well said.
Sandy, you said you work with young people. How do you do it?
Similar ways. I mean, some of it is real. I'm very much about learning from experience, getting out there, doing it, noting and paying attention as a leader to what is going on so that you can help steer the dynamic without taking charge of it. Be very aware of it and be very conscious that you've got to help people out. I think that some of that biggest challenge is that you have the lack of courageous conversations that you talked about, John. I think that's the hardest things for people to want to do. There's a higher level of avoidance than there is of going in there.
Much too much.
Yeah, and I think that's as leaders, one of the best things that we can model and that we can it's really hard to say, talk to somebody if you have a problem, or let me know if you have a problem, because it's not natural. We don't want to do that. Most people don't have a difficult conversation. You're calling it, John's calling it a courageous conversation, and when you actually go in and you do have a successful conversation, it is courageous, but to the average Joe working there, it's a difficult conversation. They're looking at it and they're saying on a Sunday night, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to have to go and have this conversation. And if we can model that we're steeling ourselves up and that this is a courageous conversation, but it's really hard for most people to do. They will avoid it as opposed to having it.
True, and I think most people, they sit with the emotions and feelings of having that difficult conversation rather than to think about what you are to win and what the goal is. The goal is relationship. And if you can push towards relationship and have that as your carrot, as your marker, the conversation becomes it becomes something that you almost are inclined to do because you crave and you want relationship, and you're doing your best to achieve that.
Yeah, but John, that is very sophisticated. And I think one of the things that Sandy's bringing up is that most people in offices don't know that, especially in that heat of anxiety that they have to go into some kind of confrontation or uncomfortable conversation, which brings my point to the fact that companies that call in coaches and consultants to help teach and handle and facilitate these kinds of conversations. The people that do them are leaders modeling for the company how it's done. I think that that's the first thing that needs to happen. There has to be some kind of teaching culture where there are mentors either in the company or outside hired in, so that people can learn that it's safe enough to take those risks, or even how to take those risks as opposed to just avoiding.
True. And what I'm saying, I'm not proposing a just go do it mentality. I'm saying this in addition to the teaching culture. And at the end, this is what your courageous conversations look like. Your emotions and your feelings will be balanced, and you'll look at what you hope to achieve in this. And it's a process to get there. It takes courage to even get on that journey to get to that type of conversation. But that is, and not a but, and that is the intent.
Yeah, actually, I mean, what you said was brilliant about following the relationship, because that is, I think, something that we all can forget in the workplace, right? So easy. True. So easy to forget that. So that was really, but to get to that place where you're actually realizing that your relationship with your boss and your coworkers is of high importance for the quality of the work and for many other things, and to follow that as your reason for having the difficult conversation, that's sophisticated. And I think a lot of people, young people especially, as Sandy was saying, need to somehow be educated into how to do it.
Totally agree. And I try to drop my teams into it.
I'm like the only one in the video on this spot. That's crazy.
It's interesting because McPhillips is also saying my audio is bad, and I'm not on a computer microphone. I'm on an external mic. And John was fine until he was made a host. I think it's.
Uh-oh. You can't see me?
No, we can't. You were perfect until you were made a host, and I think that's where we're having the challenge. Is John? No, well, Jess and I are in these co-host seats, and they're the ones that we're having problems with. Everyone else is.
You're back, John.
Fine.
John's back.
I'm back. Okay.
There you go.
And I still have host powers, I think.
Thank you for having me, by the way, Sandy. It was so nice to meet you, and for allowing me to sort of, blab away in that moment.
We love your blabbing. We love your blabbing.
We take that whole thing over.
Well, we're at about just over an hour. Des usually schedules these hours, so if we're all good, I was going to suggest we end it here. It seems like a good place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jess, do you want to try one more time to come in and say goodbye, or should we just fly off and we'll talk next week? There you go.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You can't
See
hear
you
me.
later, Des. Good to meet you.
Thanks,
Now
everybody.
you're here. Now you're here, and it's perfect.
Okay. Well, but I think it's a good idea to wind it up. Just one quick response, Blair, John, anybody on the chat room. Will we keep this going, or in some form, this leadership discussion? Or we can call it something else. We don't have to call it leadership, but I'm enjoying the exchange of views and great people like Tom and Fred and others who've been here. We still have another one next week on something.
Do it.
Yes. Has anybody
What's a good topic?
that Des is in here perfectly now?
I know, it's so bizarre.
Now.
Yeah. Okay. What's a good topic?
Leadership and balancing your emotions and your feelings.
Okay.
All right. Tom is saying that a lot of blabs have ended. He suspects it's a blab bandwidth problem.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, thank you very much. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't feel too responsible for this, but I think we've done really well. You know, I think it's been a good kind of team effort.
I agree. And Allie, 4 different events, but valid, all legit. 5 days because Frank was on here, and it's leadership and emotional intelligence. Bummy.
Yeah. She said leadership and emotional intelligence, which is good.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Great.
Okay, there we go.
We'll get back to it next week. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
Have a
Nice
great
to
evening.
meet you.
Bye now.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, likewise. Bye now.